have really strict LinkedIn feed hygiene. So if something has like thousands of likes or shares, I immediately you don't spend time looking at it. Immediately click on the 3 dots and say, don't show me content like this. The topic isn't relevant. And if I have somebody who, so do it religiously. You can't even look at it. Like, don't even let your eyeballs linger.
Welcome back to the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. I'm your co-host, Alan Hall, with Dr. Rosemary Barnes from Australia, from the land down under. Rosemary.
You don't have to call me doctor.
No, okay. It's better than Mr., I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We have a really interesting show today. There's a lot going on in wind. It seems like the world is awakening. There's moving heavy things around, like wind turbine parts. Because they're so massive, and it tends to be on these specially designed trucks for the blades and nacelles and whatnot. When they have an accident or there's a problem with the road, it turns into a big deal. So as they're moving wind turbines through Texas, they had a quote unquote component fall off a truck on an overpass and put big holes in the overpass. So it's actually shut down this major overpass in Wichita Falls, Texas, which, if you've ever been to Wichita Falls, is kind of a busy place. So, Rosemary, we've seen more and more pictures of wind turbines being damaged as they're in transport. We've also seen things fall off and these accidents happen over time. One of the things I don't think we've really thought about too much is like the road conditions, because you're moving bigger and bigger wind turbines around now. What's the chances that you're going to come across a small patch of road that's not designed for it, or has a defect in it, or that? Are we at to that point? Are we at the point that we got to be really careful on the routes we take to move wind turbines around?
Yeah, I think we reached that point many years ago, actually, especially for transporting blades. And I mean, every part of the wind turbine is affected by your ability to transport it there. Like one of the constraints on how tall towers can go is based on the size of the diameter that you can actually put on a road and transport somewhere.
True.
So if you want to go taller, then the best way to make a taller tower that's stiff enough is to increase the diameter. Otherwise, if you've got a diameter constraint, you've got to increase the thickness of the steel a lot, and you end up with a more expensive tower.
And heavier.
So yeah, it's a constraint. Yeah, exactly. It's a constraint to going higher, which would make a better wind turbine, because wind speeds are higher up there, and you can get more power if you can have a longer blade. And I know that with the long blades for onshore wind, it's one of the constraints on how long the blades can get is can you get them onto site, because it's all fine for a straight road to drive a really long blade along, but most roads have corners. some of them have bridges. I mean, yeah. Already, when you're planning a wind farm, then you're looking in the early stages as is there a route we can get there without bridges that we have to go under, and that will dictate what turbine you can sell to that developer, because they might not be able to deal with a blade route diameter that can't fit under the bridges on the way there. So the transport it infiltrates more than you would probably expect, not just the design of turbines, but what you can sell where. And I mean, it's led to that's a reason why GE made that split blade the Cypress blade, because they foresaw that this was going to allow them to get into some locations that the competitors wouldn't be able to get into. Although I do think that's turned out to not be such a big deal. Yeah,
that's what I was wondering. I don't think any of the competitors followed suit with that two-piece design, did they?
No. No, not that I know of. And I was talking to somebody from GE recently, and you seem to be making a lot of the Cypress blades like one-piece version of the Cypress blades now. What's going on? And he said that it's because the competitors had kind of sorted out some of those constraints with ports and roads and whatever. And to be honest, it sounded like a bit of a corporate thing to say, a way to be like, our design was awesome, but because our competitors couldn't match our awesome design, they had to, do some other solution. But yeah. So that's one interpretation. The other interpretation was that, there's a lot of compromises that you make when you split a blade in half. And, I still think that the jury is out on whether that's going to prove to be as valuable, the benefits are going to prove to be as valuable as the cost to adding that complexity. And yeah, it's a pain.
Well, it brings up the discussion. I think we talked about this a little while ago of moving blades around. One of the things you see tossed around in the aerospace world all the time is airships or blimps and moving heavy cargo like wind turbine blades. Maybe it does make sense. Maybe we're at that point that we need to have some sort of airship lifting and moving blades around just to get over the road issue. That is very possible still. You see that? I see that.
When you go into a factory, like the number one rule that you learn is that you don't walk under a suspended load, right? They really, really take care to make sure that you're not. Like, that's the number one rule that they're making sure that everybody follows. And I remember one time I was in the factory after like 24 hours straight of working. I was really tired, and I somehow didn't hear the alarms that were going off about, because they've got this gantry system in place, and they move blades and half blades around all the time. And I walked underneath something. And I got really yelled at by the lead for that,
the foreman
shift. Yeah. I can't remember what they're actually called. This was in Spain, and fair enough. And I was horrified at myself because I don't like to put myself in danger when I'm at work. But yeah, it's really important that you don't walk under suspended loads, because things usually don't go wrong, but if they did, then you'd be crushed to death. And so that's why I'm uncomfortable about the idea of blimps delivering really heavy things, is that everybody's going to be walking or living or driving or, kids playing under these huge suspended loads. And the one time that goes wrong, that's not cool. So it sounds good, but at the same time, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with it.
Well, I think we can do it. We're already walking under those loads already. There's 747s and Airbus A380s flying around. They're much bigger than a wind turbine blade. Well, at least today they are. Maybe not much longer. These wind turbine blades on some of these newer turbines are massive, massive things. So bigger than an A380. They do on occasion
deliver wind turbine blades and wind turbine components by aeroplane. That has on occasion.
I've seen that. I've actually seen that.
The cheapest way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was down in North Carolina one time on that wind turbine components. It was shocking. The airplane was massive. Yeah. There you go. Right.
Yeah. I don't think maybe there's a blade.
No.
Also,
no, not yet.
It's not so. It doesn't sound at least environmentally friendly, does it? To drive really just huge masses around in airplanes for. Yeah. If there's an alternative, I'd rather see it used.
Well, we're still working on it. That's for sure. Down in Oklahoma this week, the American Electric Power is opening the largest single wind farm in North America. It's called the Traverse Wind Energy Center. It has a 998 megawatt. Why don't they just round it up to a gigawatt? You know what I mean?
I know,
like 998.
One more turbine. I mean, come on.
just spin it up a little faster, right? Can we uprate some of the generators here just a little tiny bit? Because that 1 gigawatt is pretty impressive. 998 is like, just not quite there. But it's a big place in sort of northern Oklahoma. 356 GE turbines, 2.3s to 2.8 megawatt turbines. That's a lot of turbines to do in one project. It's only 1/3 of two. There's two other projects going on simultaneously, which are generating, again, 1.484 megawatts. Why couldn't they just round it up to 1.5 gigawatts? I think that would have been a nice number. But okay. So the thing about this project is that I think it's the beginning of many projects like this, that we're going to see, instead of putting up 50 turbines, 75 turbines in America, I think you're going to start seeing projects and where they're going to be several hundred turbines at a time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that project actually turns out, because if it does work, you could see sort of the Elon Musk effect of, we can power America by putting solar arrays in the one part of Utah, and we can power all of America. I think that same thing is going to be tried in wind energy. because someone's going to try the Elon Musk thing. Maybe Elon Musk actually tries the solar farm thing and tries to power all of America with a corner of Utah. Okay, maybe. But as we get more dependent on renewable energy, we're going to need that sort of buffer. We're going to need to have more than what we could possibly use, sort of thing. And so these wind farms are going to get, I think, bigger, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. And I did a lot of work in northern Sweden in the wind farm up there. I mean, there's a few in the area, but the biggest one is the Markbygden one. That's the last one I worked on up there, and they've got over a gigawatt for that area, and it's the largest onshore wind farm in Europe. And it's interesting how it all works. So when you put in a wind farm of that size, the developer actually built like a village for all the construction workers on, I think it was on a barge in the river. Yeah, I didn't stay there when I went on site. I couldn't get a spot, which I was a bit disappointed about because it would have been really cool. Yeah, but like they need so many construction workers for the construction period that they just actually built a village for a few years while all that happened. And then obviously you're left with a lot of maintenance jobs, operations and maintenance jobs afterwards. So it really changes the area. And in Sweden, I mean, everyone was really happy about it because, it's an area where people had traditionally been leaving the area to get work in in Stockholm or in, a big city somewhere else. And so, it kept a lot of really good jobs up there, professional jobs and what they call blue collar jobs in Europe. Yeah. So that aspect of it is really interesting. And I think it does make sense. And especially for wind where, people don't want a wind turbine in their backyard. It's not like people are happy to have solar panels on their roof, but
true.
You do face problems putting in like a lot of small wind farms is going to be near a lot of communities who will raise a fuss. So if you can get one big area where the community wants it, then that can be a good way to get a lot of power all at once. And we're seeing something similar in Australia. All the states have announced these renewable energy zones where they take a site that has good wind and solar potential and is near transmission lines, because that's the problem with
the key, right?
Putting all your renewables at once is you got to get that huge amount of power, and it's a problem in Sweden too, because there's not a lot of people living up there. So how do you get this cheap Swedish power down to where people live? And in fact, you see other industries, energy intensive manufacturing, move up there because they've got cheap green energy. So that's a thing as well. But yeah, the renewable energy zones are kind of good because you can also, you put them in the places where communities want them. They want the jobs. They want, they want the industry in their town or in their region. And so then you don't need to be fighting with communities against these projects all the time. You put them where they're wanted and where things make sense.
It's a really interesting approach. Yeah, because I think one of the issues is the support crews tend to be very small in most places in America. There's 5-10 people maybe supporting a 50 turbine farm. When you start to get to the numbers, we're talking about 300, 400. Now it seems like there's a little more mass and the jobs become a little more relevant, I think, because the numbers are higher. And that's a really interesting take. I do think we're going to see more of this in the future.
Yeah, so Alan, you and I spend a fair bit of time on LinkedIn, I'd say. And I mean, I really like that. I've made actual friends by now. I would call them friends on LinkedIn. And I find it a really good way to, keep in touch with what's going on in the industry and get a variety of viewpoints. But have you noticed it's getting a little bit more annoying recently? A lot more like spammy kinds of stuff happening. It's kind of hard to, I don't know, there's less. The value to spam ratio seems to be getting skewed recently. Have you noticed that?
Yes, it's almost like Twitter at some point where there's anonymous names behind these accounts, and people will start to spam you. And for the longest time, at least through COVID, I rarely had that happen, but now it happens multiple times a day. And in the wind energy community is really on LinkedIn. That's where it exists, right? So everybody we like to talk to and hear from is on LinkedIn. But now we're getting this sort of peripheral thing, and maybe it's just us. Maybe because of this crazy podcast, we're getting hammered a lot more than others. But it just seems like we're getting just sort of random accounts that don't look like they're real people reaching out to connect. And Rosemary, maybe you've seen some of this already, but you probably get those inquiries about, hey, let's have a meeting, and you can give me all the knowledge you have in your head, and then I can use that to create this white paper or to sell the information to somebody else, their clients. Don't you get that stuff too, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different things. There's the weird accounts that don't have any followers or any they haven't got any work history. And those ones, if I can, then I will, look at my connection requests quickly, and I just reject those profiles. And if they get several rejections, you tell LinkedIn you don't know them, then they have some sort of penalty for that. So I think that's worth doing. The other thing I did was putting my profile onto creator profile so that people are encouraged to follow rather than connect, and I find that helpful. I get less connection requests now. Because what is the point in being connected if you're not actually going to have some sort of one-on-one relationship? So that helps. But then the final point that you mentioned about people getting in touch to get free access to my technical
to your
expertise.
Head, right?
That really annoys me. I've had every week or two now. I'm getting people who they'll say that they have a client, that they're getting paid to do this financial analysis of a company, and then they do this like semi kind of flattering kind of language, like, oh, you're a thought leader, and oh, it would be really great to have a meeting of the minds and spar on this. There's all these like jargon, these like buzzwords that they throw in there to basically they want me to do some engineering analysis for them so that they can get paid at a financial analyst rate by their client for for my 20 years of experience in engineering of renewable energy technologies, and that is starting to really annoy me. I don't know why these investment companies aren't going directly to engineers rather than getting, they seem to only get financial analysis most of the time. And you see that in the kinds of investments that they choose to make. It's the same kind of, as like these occasional companies that have really figured out the media, how to get media attention. And then, they just keep on announcing investments and projects, and the engineering never seems to go anywhere. And I guess that's because they spend 99% of their effort on the fundraising and marketing. So I don't know, to those companies that, have money to spend on clean techs, like actual hard tech, hardware, I would suggest that, you need your financial analysis, but before you need that, you need engineering analysis. And I would recommend getting one involved.
Recommending paying for it.
I can recommend
that'd be a good
one.
idea.
Yeah, I can recommend a good one if you want.
Right. I can think of a couple. Yes, exactly. And the thing about LinkedIn, I think the beautiful thing about LinkedIn and wind energy, at least for the last couple of years, is that there has been a community there, and people had some really good ideas, and people would post things that are happening around them locally. So, and being in America, we only see kind of American things, right? And we see things that happen in Denmark and Germany and India and Australia. And that was the really fun part of LinkedIn, is you felt like you're in this sort of professional community. And maybe LinkedIn is realizing that it's more beneficial to be more like a TikTok than it does to have a professional community. It does seem that it's changing some, which is unfortunate, because I do like seeing professional people post professional things. And the other thing, I think we're seeing more of is more political stuff than we were having in the past. Before, it was like verboten that you couldn't do it. If you did, you just kind of got swarmed and told to stop by the public.
Do you just think that's because of the current situation?
No. We went through 4 years of a certain president, and there really wasn't that much noise on LinkedIn. There was on Twitter and TikTok and all the other social media platforms, Facebook, but there wasn't much on LinkedIn. Yeah. And then it just seems like there's a lot more things going on.
That certain president was bad for you in America, but I think LinkedIn has always had that huge cringe factor. And if you, I've always felt like such a dork, so uncool for liking LinkedIn, because everyone thinks that it's so cringy. But you've got to make the algorithm that, determines your feed. You've got to teach it or train it away from it. Like every social media platform has this tendency to like just funnel you into this extreme kind of like appeal to every single person, catchy, superficial thing.
Yeah.
So I have really strict LinkedIn feed hygiene. So if something has like thousands of likes or shares, I immediately, like, you don't spend time looking at it. Immediately click on the 3 dots and say, don't show me content like this. The topic isn't relevant. Yeah. And if I have somebody who, so do it religiously. You can't even look at it. Like, don't even let your eyeballs linger.
It's not watching your facial expressions. I don't. Yeah.
No, but I don't know the algorithm, but I'm assuming that it's like, every other algorithm where it wants to keep your attention on the platform as long as possible, and probably the amount of time that you spend on a post, or if you click the, like read more thing. I'm assuming that is just information for LinkedIn that you love this sort of thing. So even if it's like, I wonder what this says, like if it's got thousands of likes, you just immediately like, don't show me any more of this. And then, sometimes it shows you things that just some random contact of yours has liked. And you notice the same person coming up, you just mute them. I don't want to see this person's updates. And then you'll only see if they like post or something, which I think is a bit better. So just doing those 2 things can really make the feed a lot better, because I don't want to I don't want to just, go off LinkedIn because that's gotten annoying, because one thing I really like about it is, like if I'm researching a new technology, I will often go to LinkedIn first to search for it, because you look at the comments, you'll see people with expertise in that area arguing different points of view about it. Like, oh yeah, but you failed to see this, like, this engineering consideration or this economic consideration. And so you get a lot more, I guess you could call it balance. And if you just read, a news article written by a journalist that doesn't understand the context and the broader context and the nuance.
I assume you're talking about Glenn Ryan when he comments on a bunch of engineering technology. I love his responses to all kinds of renewable things. Glenn is right on top of like, that's baloney, or no, that's great, but you haven't thought about that. His comments are actually additive to the conversation, where some others are like, oh, that's a great idea. That's cool. Those kind of comments don't add anything. Glenn adds something to the discussion. And I think that's what LinkedIn was all about, was trying to add something to the discussion in a professional manner. He does it very professionally, of course. That I always think, oh, Glenn's talking about this. I need to read what Glenn is saying because he's a really smart person. So I need to, need to absorb this and see what his opinion is. And I think that's what LinkedIn's all about. And that's why I really like it is that occasionally you get really smart people. So there's my 2 cents.
Yeah. And there's a few like that. I actually, I met Glenn in person on the weekend. That was very exciting. He's one of my LinkedIn friends. And now I've met him in person. I visited his house where they've got a prototype of their Sonovate system on the roof. I'm going to make a video about it coming up soon. So yeah, but it's really funny because we've hung out a lot virtually, and to actually meet him in person was it was interesting.
It's nice, right? I mean, that's the beauty of LinkedIn, where a TikTok or a Facebook, you don't do that, and that's what I hope we get back to on LinkedIn, and we can have those good, really get into a little bit engineering discussions, because that's what it's about. Talking about engineering discussions, one of the things that's happening off the coast of the U.S. again is offshore leases. And they just announced an offshore lease off the coast of the Carolinas, North and South Carolina. And that's going to happen in May. So we're not very far away from that. It's 110,000 acres. And they're going to put 1.3 gigawatts, at least that's the plan, off the coast to power about 500,000 homes. Now, we recently had the offshore bidding off the coast of New York, and that raised about $4 billion for about 500,000 acres. So this is about a fifth of that. Rosemary, I'm guessing this is going to be close to $1 billion. Another bid for offshore wind. That's a crazy number, right? For 1.3 gigawatts, isn't that a lot of money for 1.3 gigawatts just to have access to leases? That just seems. misproportion
I
somehow.
don't quite understand the economics of this. And it's something, because I was at it wasn't a wind energy conference. It was a clean tech conference, or just an energy conference in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago. And it's something I was talking about with a friend of mine who he has been working in offshore oil and gas, and now the company is, trying to move into offshore wind. And we were thinking about, what's been going on in America with these just immense prices that are being paid at auction for the leases,
Right.
and how that fits into the Australian context. Because here, there's one project in particular, the Star of the South in Victoria. They have done all the groundwork for the offshore wind industry in Australia. They've identified a site, then they've gone through and it's like, okay, there's no rules or regulations or planning process for offshore wind in Australia. It's not even technically allowed. So, they've had to kind of hold the hand of governments and everyone, at all levels to get those frameworks in place. They still don't have a lease or anything for the site that they plan to build it. But can you imagine if at the end of, they've been working on it for at least, I don't know, for 5 years or so, I would say, and it'll be another 5 probably before they're like really well and truly underway with construction. Can you imagine if, after 5 or 10 years of planning and development work, if the government had an auction and then you lost, you didn't get the right to use that.
And you lost.
to use that land.
You could lose. That's exactly right.
Somebody else could just come in and, basically get all of that work that they did for free. And you would be able to, because they don't have to make back that money that Star of the South has spent so far on all that development. And they've done, so much work with community engagement and, every part of it. So I would feel like that was hugely unfair if that happened to them. So I hope that we don't immediately see this auction process in Australia, but as a government, it must be so tempting, because that's a huge amount of money that they can get. What do they do with that money when they get it? Do you know?
Spend it.
I guess that's what you usually do with money.
Yeah.
But is it earmarked for energy transition stuff or anything, or just general revenue?
I doubt it. Probably general revenue. Yeah, it's probably spent before they get it too. Yeah, I would imagine that's the case. Well, I mean, it's not like Australian government's going to be any different than the United States government. If they saw $1 billion laying in the street, the politicians are going to scoop that up pretty quickly. And I think that's what's happening in the States, is that they realize, like, holy moly, there's a lot of money out here that we take advantage of. And then all the states get very active about it and start thinking, well, if they just paid $1 billion for a site, maybe we can, pull a couple million off of the developer too. So it's kind of a cyclical thing. And I think you're right. Maybe it's beneficial, but maybe long-term it's not that great of an idea. So, what do you do?
Isn't it going to make the cost of that energy higher because you've got this
yes,
huge,
it has to,
huge extra
right?
cost? I don't know. It's
a lot
interesting.
of overhead to carry with a project. Yeah, right. And so one of the things about this particular auction that's going to happen is the U.S. government, just make it simply, the U.S. government is going to offer a 20% credit to bidders if they commit to invest in programs that will advance the U.S. offshore wind industry, workforce training, and supply chain development. So if you got a 20% discount, so let's just say you put the $1 billion down and you won the auction, you'd only be paying $800,000 for that lease space. But I'd assume that the other $200 million would be poured into the local community. Maybe that's the deal right there, is that that cash, that 20% discount does kind of get funneled into the local community. Well, for workforce training, I think that makes total sense for the wind industry to be involved in that, and the supply chain development, because we just don't have a supply chain in the United States at the moment, and most countries don't. So maybe this is a different take on it. Maybe it'll work. It's one of those things that kind of gets fleshed out. And like you're saying, we did talk to. Just at an aside, we did talk to maybe a potential future guest that's working on some offshore wind in the United States, and one of the issue was getting workforce training together and how big of an issue that is. So it kind of ties in right there, and hopefully that guest will come on shortly, because we're really interested to hear that story.
I like the idea of this this discount if you have benefits for the local community. I think a lot of countries require local content to get a project at all. But in a way, this new plan, maybe that makes more sense because the developer can then decide which parts are best to, feed into the local community, like where are there existing capabilities that can be built upon. Because I think if you just kind of impose that everything has to be built there, you can end up with, causing big delays or big cost increases if you're, imposing that something needs to be built there that there is just like zero capability currently. You need to wait for that to build up, and it can really put a handbrake on the whole project. And I mean, people are pretty keen to get renewable energy projects developed fast now, especially, with the volatility, or not even volatility, just price rises of fossil fuels. So I think that it is smart to allow some flexibility. Like, you definitely need to have local benefits. And I think going forward, everyone's aware that we've probably offshored too much.
Too much.
It was good at the start, and now it's bad. Even just for costs aside from security or anything else. So I think it is really important that we develop those capabilities in the countries where the energy is needs to be. And I think this is a good way to do it, to make sure that it doesn't slow everything down.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, just put out this really big report talking about onshoring in the United States, and particularly on this 30 gigawatts, and by 2030 on the East Coast of the United States. They went through sort of the supply chain piece of it and the workforce training piece of it to see what you would need and how could you get to 2030 with those 30 gigawatts. And the numbers are really staggering, actually. You're going to need about 2,100 wind turbines, about 7,000 miles of cable. You're going to need 4 vessels just to lay the cable. You're going to need 11 service operation vessels. You're going to need 5 to 6 wind turbine installation vessels. And those are things that we don't have at the moment, by the way. And in terms of employees, you're going to need depending on how much you onshore and how fast you onshore them, you need between 12 and 50,000 full-time employees. That's a lot of people by 2030 to pull that off. And the question really is, do we have that capability? And some of the technology pieces, Rosemary, are really fascinating because there tend to be more heavy industry that you would assume would be in the United States already, because we built cars, we built ships, we built airplanes, we do all these things. But in very specific wind turbine focused areas, we do not have that capability. And here, let me list some of them, because I think they're interesting, and I don't even know how U.S. or Australia or a lot of countries could even respond in a short amount of time, because these things take time to develop, because the industry takes time to develop. So big one here, yaw and pitch bearings. I guess you don't make yaw and pitch bearings in America. They must be coming from overseas somewhere. Interesting. Permanent magnets, especially with generators, right? You need permanent magnets to do that. And a lot of that comes from overseas. Large castings and forged components. I guess they're talking about hubs and generator casings and that kind of thing. Steel plates for the monopiles and towers. That one seems odd too, but okay, maybe we just don't make the steel plate here like we used to. Electrical systems, and the one that it doesn't make any sense is mooring chains. Like, we can't make mooring chains in the United States. We don't have anybody making any chain in the United States. Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't have anybody making the chains. But when you start breaking down that list, you can't build a wind turbine without having heavy steel capability. Right? You need that. Yeah. So you can't just work around that. So do you see that there's going to be this kind of big problem coming?
A lot of it seems to be related to steel manufacturing. Actually,
yes.
I would guess that's your problem.
Yes.
I mean, China does nearly all of the world's steel, processing it from making it from iron ore and turning it into steel and into plates and, whatever else that you need. Of course, the US used to have those capabilities, and I'm sure that the reason why it moved was because of cost. So I guess that's just a strategic decision that can be made to bring it back onshore and pay a little bit extra cost. I think it's going to happen around the world, partly because of security, but also I think partly because as advanced manufacturing becomes more of a thing, the cost of labor isn't quite so important as it probably used to be. And I know the cost of labor in China is going up anyway. It's not the really like super low cost labor that it was at the start of the process of globalization. So I think that we're going to see a lot more manufacturing done in the place where either the raw materials are mined or the final products are used. And I think there'll be a nice side effect beneficial to climate change in that a lot less heavy stuff is going to get shipped around. So in my opinion, that's going to be one of the biggest changes to decarbonizing. Shipping is a really big problem. It's a hard to abate sector. And I think a lot of it's going to come from just shipping less stuff from, not reversing, but, the next phase of globalization, it's going to, I think we've seen a peak of making things just all around the world, wherever it happened to be the cheapest. And we're going to, it's going to change whether like the overall cheapest system cost is. Going to change, and I think we'll see less shipping.
Do you think that in the United States, I'm guessing the steel factories that do remain are the ones that have been shuttered, at least in the recent past, were probably coal-fired? That you think that if we do start up those big steel factories and the processing, that we'll be doing it new, like with hydrogen or some electricity based? I mean, I think you mentioned that there's a new way of making steel that is much more environmentally friendly. So are we going to go down that pathway with some of this?
It's funny, actually.
This new money.
It's funny you mentioned that, because if Dan was here, then he would have a go at me for plugging my YouTube channel again. But that's actually, I have a video coming out soon on steel, on how to. You can't say decarbonized steel, because obviously decarbonized steel is just iron. You need some carbon in. You need some carbon in there, otherwise it's not steel. But yeah, so it is a topic that I've been researching recently. I think in the US you have a lot of what you call mini mills. There's electric arc furnace, so you take scrap mostly scrap, and you use electricity to make it into new steel products. And so, I mean, that's already environmentally friendly and cost effective, but it only works, to maintain you can only take steel products that are at the end of their life and turn them into new ones. You can't, like expand the amount of steel you use each year. And I think even if you just look at the energy transition, let alone all the, bridges and whatever else you want to make with steel, wind turbine towers made from steel, a lot of frames of solar panels are made from steel, hydro, everything uses steel, so you're going to need more. And then, the options for that, hydrogen is a really good technology for retrofitting existing, like you can replace coal with hydrogen, basically. So you still use your blast furnace, and instead of reacting carbon with the oxygen in iron ore, you react hydrogen, or there's some other things you can use as well, or you can replace it with biomass. And those are really fast things you can do. And you see companies are doing that now. There are projects happening. But then the next wave is probably going to be some other processes that use electricity and go directly to steel. So there's like the Boston Metals method, where they do this high temperature electrolysis. I think they called it, I can't remember what they call it, molten something electrolysis. And then there's also a low temperature version of that as well, where you dissolve the iron ore and reduce that solution and end up with iron at the end of it. So those couple of technologies need new equipment, and it's a new process. So those are probably
new ideas.
Away, but new
so?
ideas.
Well, maybe not. Right? Maybe they're not a decade away.
It's a commercialization thing. It's not the science is fine, and everyone's everyone's had demonstration projects, but it's taking it from we did this once to now we can make thousands of tons of steel using this process.
Well, that's what you don't get into those accelerated development cycles until there's a real demand, right? And maybe this is the new demand is this offshore wind maybe driving a lot of different industries to become greener and try new technologies, which is good. I mean, it's sort of like an offshoot of something that we need, renewable energy, and then we develop these other technologies, and now we're making cleaner steel. Hey, that's great.
Yeah. No, I agree. And if a lot of your, supply chain pain points are related to steel, and you, in the US, I say you, I mean the US, you represent the whole of
Sure.
the United States to me. If you are going to expand your steel manufacturing industry, I do hope that it's not going to be by buying a lot of blast furnaces and coking coal. I hope that it's going to be with some cleaner stuff. And if you're starting from scratch, then it makes more sense to go through the direct reduction or electrolysis routes rather than going for a blast furnace, I would suggest.
We'll see, right? I think that's, but these discussions are really good, right? To let people know there are other alternatives to sort of 1950s or 1890 technology in terms of steel and
it's pretty old
in industries. Yeah, well, it is. We made steel for a long time in the States, right? And we started dirty and it's gotten cleaner over time. And hey, it's a new generation. Let's make it better. I think that'll do it for this week on the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. If you have some time, go check out Rosemary's Engineering with Rosie YouTube channel with its thousands of subscribers. It's a really good time. There's actually a lot of good episodes on there. So if you want to learn something about renewable energy or wind energy, it's probably on Rosie's channel. And you can check us out on Apple and Spotify and Stitcher and all the normal podcast platforms. So thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week on the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast.